Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm continuing my read along for ErHa Volume 6. I am so happy to be here because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make tonight or Thursday's live stream. My dad is currently in hospital and it's nothing like he's fine. um, but because of that, I was unsure because the visiting hours are at 7 p.m. and on Monday last night we only got back home at like 8:30. Um, so because of that, I was like, it's a bit of a shaky time, but then we managed to go earlier, so everything worked out fine. And I'm thinking we're probably gonna do that again on Thursday as well, so everything should be going on as normal. Um, but yeah, just in case things do change, that will be why. Um, Hello. uh, Thank you very much. I appreciate it. He is very sleepy at the moment, but he looks good, so that's all that matters. Okay, so sorry, I'm a little bit scattered, but if you're new here, hi, I'm Janae, I read anime, and we're currently busy with The Husky and His White Cat Shizun, Volume 6, as I mentioned. I drink tea, we have like a 10-minute break on the hour, and I generally aim to do about 40 pages. So I think that's more or less it. Uh, yes, I think probably. I'm not sure if it was morphine exactly, but definitely some pain medication. Um, but anyway, okay. So we were, for anyone who wants to follow along, we were at chapter 198. Uh, oh, Shizun sets out for Mount Huang. That sounds potentially terrifying. Okay. Um, When their 10-day fast had ended, Nanggongsi and Ye Wangxi set out for Mount Jiao. Now Bai Jin had been heavily wounded and couldn't carry his master on this long journey. The massive Fey wolf had transformed himself into a tiny puppy no larger than a man's palm and curled up in Nanggongsi's quiver, fuzzy head hanging out. Okay, quick side tangent here. So, there's a thing called a Rage Expo that we have here in South Africa, which is like Comic Con, but for gaming specifically. But I suspect there's gonna be some like anime-ish things still present there. Would it not be amazing to have like a Nabaijin styled stuffed toy or like pillow? Would that not be the cutest thing? I'm sorry. Like, I was looking at one of the artists who I think is gonna be at the Rage Expo, and I might end up with a new pillow by the time I'm done there. RIP my wallet. Moran saw them off at the sect's main gate. Stroking the mane of the horse he led, he grinned. Mount Jiao is a long journey, and riding swords is too taxing. Take these horses. They were raised on spiritual grass and can cover hundreds of miles in a day. They're no match for Bai Jin, but they'll see you safely to the mountain. The pair swung up astride their horses. From his seat, Nanggongse cupped his hands and respectfully lowered his gaze. Thank you, Moshong. No need to accompany us any further. I hope our paths will soon cross again. Take care. Be safe. Moran stood at the gate and watched as Nanggongse and Ye Wangxi's figures receded into the distance. As he turned to leave, he heard a creak from the forest to his left, as if a branch had snapped and fallen to the ground. Meow. Moran narrowed his eyes. A cat? He muttered. I'm sorry, I'm immediately thinking, like, did our dear Chuaning accidentally transform again, and this time it's not into a surly prepubescent. I'd buy that. Yeah, no, there's so many things I would want to buy. And I want to make as well, but I don't have the skill. Yuangxi and Nangongsi rode down the mountain side by side, guiding the horses onto the winding, narrow road towards Wuchang town. Sunlight streamed through the dense canopy overhead, turning the dust kicked up by their hooves into flecks of dancing brilliance. Nangongsi turned to Yuangxi. As he parted his lips to speak, now Bai Jin's fuzzy head popped out of the quiver, followed by two snow-white, golden-clawed paws. The little wolf pup threw its head back in two plaintive yowls. Pulling hard on the reins, Nangongsa jumped. "Watch out!" Darts whistled at them from all directions as the horses whined in fright. Nangongsa and Yuangxi drew their swords in the same instant, falling into the old habits of their youth. They leapt up without a word, Nangongsa's blade flying left, Yuangxi's sword dancing right. A series of clangs, and the poison-tipped pearl blossom needles fell to the ground. Yuangxi tossed out a talisman and brought down a barrier around them. "Who's there?" Nangongsa bellowed. A shadow flicked over them, though there was nary a cloud in sight. They raised their eyes to see a man at the tip of a tree branch, his wide sleeves flapping and long beard flying. Backlit by a bright sky, he peered down at them, his eyes filled with hateful scorn. Nangongsa placed him as Huang Xiaoye, the cousin of the former sect leader of Jiangdonghu. He stared daggers of ice at Yuangxi, lofty and silent, lofty and silent above all. Around them came the ominous rustling of leaves as 100 Jiangdonghu disciples stepped out of the forest. Each wore a scarlet circlet at their brow, signifying their status as former disciples of the sect. Huang Xiaoye twirled his beard around a finger. "It seems you two enjoyed your stay at Session Peak. You've been holed up in there for 10 long days. It's really very inconsiderate of you," says the man who's about to hold two children responsible for the quote-unquote sins of their fathers. Well, I mean, there's no quote-unquote about the sins. It's more about the fact that I don't necessarily qualify them as fathers of these two. Um, Huang Xiaoye, why must it be you again? Nang Gongsi fumed. "So what if it is?" Huang Xiaoye replied evenly. "Don't tell me you're unaware of the grievances between Jiang Donghu and Rufeng sect. We fended off 4 of your sect's attacks between Lingyi and Sichuan, yet you still insisted on hounding us," Nang Gongsi ground out. "What grievance do you speak of? Haven't you had your full? Your sister-in-law murdered your brother, and the one who revealed it was Shu Shuanglin. Yet you insist on picking a fight with us? Haven't you any shame?" "Shame? I think the shameless one is you, little Gongzi," Huang Xiaoye growled. "It's your Rufeng sect that brought my Jiangdong Hall to ruin. Do you deny it? If you insist on avenging yourself on Rufeng sect, then let justice be determined out in the open," said Ye Wangxi. "Instead, you waylay us on the road and attempt an assassination." "Shut up. Girls shouldn't chime in when men are talking." Look, if I ever used my middle finger, it would be in use right now. That's all I'm gonna say. Huang Xiaoye flicked his sleeves. "Don't get ideas just because your old man raised you like a boy. You'll never be anything but a stupid wench. A woman's place is in the kitchen. Who do you think you are, talking back to me? Okay, so then by that same merit, you won't murder her, right? Because she's a useless woman who couldn't possibly pose any threat to you. So wouldn't it be beneath you to murder her? But I don't think you're going to make that exception in that case. You're just going to have double standards, aren't you? Sorry. Huang Xiaoye, watch your mouth, Nan Gongsi snarled. Huh? Watch my mouth? Let's lay out the facts, shall we? Huang Xiaoye pointed at Nan Gongsi and continued, menacing. Your father seduced a married woman and convinced that person to poison my brother and seize his position. As for her, he jabbed a vicious finger at Ye Wangxi. Her Yifu aired Jiangdong Hall's dirty laundry to the world and smeared our reputation. I've led our sect's best fighters here today to get justice for Jiangdong Hall and the rest of the world. Oh yes, I'm sure the rest of the world thanks you for your service. Oh my goodness. No sexism, how refreshing. Indeed, something never seen before. He leapt down with a flourish as the crowd of leering disciples rushed towards Nangongsi and Yewangxi. Before they reached their targets, a great swath of flames roared up to block their path. Gale winds tore through the trees, throwing the disciples several yards backward. Moshong? Nangongsi exclaimed. It was indeed none other than Moran. Willow whip in hand, he alighted on a tree facing Huang Xiaoye and fixed him with a cold stare. Huang Xiaoye hadn't expected this encounter. His expression grew ugly as he cast about for a retort. Mo Zongshi, what brings you down the mountain today? Seeing the sights? The sight of you getting your ass handed to you, yes. Zongshi, why did you ask your disciple why he's hiding in a tree pretending to be a cat? Ooh, okay. Huang Xiaoye's brow was twisted, his complexion as sallow as the yellow of his namesake. What does Zongshi mean by this? He said between gritted teeth. Huang Qinbei, I should be the one to ask you, Moran replied. You've attacked Shizun Peace's guests in our own territory. Did you find my sect so pristine you were inspired to sprinkle blood onto our dirt? Yes, Moran. We're no longer on the mountain. Your sect has no right to meddle. I'm avenging my dead brother. Mo Zongshi, no one asked your opinion. Huang Qinbei is quite correct, said Moran. We've come down from the mountain. Shizun Peak has no business meddling in the grievances of private citizens. Huang Xiaoye snorted. Well, step aside. Moran didn't budge, but Zheng Yue glowed brighter, its scarlet leaves glittering like beads of blood. But what if I myself want to meddle? You? He had no illusions about Moran's abilities, but he couldn't back down with blood vengeance on the line. He rumbled threateningly. Mo Zongshi, do you intend to make an enemy of Jiangdong Hall? Oh, not at all. I simply want to ensure my guests make it out of Sichuan in one piece, Moran replied. Jiangdong Hall or Jiangdong... Well, it doesn't matter who's standing in my way. Goodness. And this is why we grew to love him. Huang Xiaoye narrowed his eyes. The hatred in them was tangible, as if they might burst into flames and burn Moran and the cypress he stood on to ash. You insist on protecting these two Rufan sect vermin? Vermin? Moran asked coldly, sorry. Qianbei, please enlighten me. What did Monsieur and Nang Gongzi have to do with Jiang Dongho's misadventures? Huang Xiaoye didn't respond. Husky got your tongue? Like, what the hell? Did they instigate Jiang Dongho's power struggles? Expose Jiang Dongho's scandals? Moran stared at Huang Xiaoye. Did they kill the previous sect leader? Did they sabotage your brother? Who cares? Huang Xiaoye shouted fiercely. The son shoulders the father's debts. That's the way of the world. I so wish Moran would pull out something that he completely had forgotten, like that Huang Xiaoye, Wang Xiaoye had completely forgotten his father was guilty of. Oh, damn. Guys, sorry, my dad is calling. Would you guys mind if I quickly just take it? I just quickly. Sorry about that. um, sorry about that. Oh, Moran asked carelessly. No need for more words between us, Hong Chenbei. Let's let our weapons do the talking. Mowaye, Hong Xiaoye sputtered in rage. You're being completely unreasonable. How interesting. Who's the unreasonable one here? A new voice, sharp and haughty, rang out from the mountain top. Please say it's Shumeng, because he just seems like the kind of person who would be keen to, like, back Morana, but obviously not see it that way. Brandishing Longcheng before him, Shumeng strolled out of the forest, his frigid silver blade blinding in the sun, screaming bloody murder right on my doorstep, as if you could just kill as you please. Does does Jiang Dongho think everyone in Social Peak is dead? Aren't you asking for trouble? Huang Xiaoye knew he couldn't defeat Moran in a head-to-head battle, but he might have conceivably found an opportunity to kill Nang Gongsi and Ye Wangxi while Moran was occupied fighting the others. Yet now Shumeng had stepped in as well, the darling of the heavens who had taken the top prize at the spiritual mountain competition. Who didn't know the fearsome might of the blade Long Cheng in his hand? These two cousins both stood outside of the sect to defend Nang Gongsi and Ye Wangxi. No matter what tricks Huang Xiaoye had up his sleeve, there was no way he could catch both of them off guard. Yet, at Shumeng's arrival, Moran's expression grew somber. Go back, he said to Shumeng. I'm here to help. I'm acting of my own accord. This has nothing to do with Shizun Peak. Don't interfere. I mean, I think a little bit of rebellion would do Shumeng some good. Sorry guys, I'm just remembering that Shumeng saw himself when they went in and like into that test of seduction. Or Shumeng would absolutely turn up for a fight if he believed the cause was good. That is my dad calling my mom now, so sorry if you can hear that, but I can't silence it. She'll pick up on the other line in a minute. We still have landlines. Okay, where were we? Moran found. What was this kid thinking? Even if even if Jiang Donghuo's power had waned, it was still one of the 9 great sects of the Upper Cultivation Realm. It shouldn't be underestimated. In addition, the niece of Jiang Donghuo's former leader was wedded to one of Hua Huang Pavilion's senior disciples. Okay, sorry guys, just give me a second. I don't know why she's not answering no. Okay, hopefully that is the last situation for the night. Where were we? Okay, I'm just gonna start from the top of the paragraph because I've completely lost the trend of it now. Moran found. What was the kid thinking? Even if Jiang Donghuo's power had waned, it was still one of the 9 great sects of the Upper Cultivation Realm. It shouldn't be underestimated. In addition, the niece of Jiang Donghuo's former leader was wedded to one of Hua Huang Pavilion's senior disciples. If Shumeng came to Moran's aid now, Shizun Peak would effectively make enemies with not just one but 2 of the Upper Cultivation Realm sects. This wouldn't do. Go back, said Moran. But Shumeng was too naive to tease out the subtleties. He was merely guiled that Moran didn't want his help. As they stared each other down, a cloud of dust rose in the distance. A white seed arrowed towards them, its lovely rider clad in snow-bright robes with a pippa on her back, a cultivator from Kunlun Tashio Palace. Urgent! An urgent message! She called out, brows knitted, urging her horse to greater speed. She rounded the corner at a full gallop, only to come across an apparent standoff. Pulling her horse up, she blinked at them in confusion from her saddle. Urgent, what are you doing? The sudden arrival of the messenger put an end to Moran and Huang Xiaoye's fight before it had even begun. At Xu Jingyong's invitation, Huang Xiaoye went up to Shizun Peak, and Nang Gongsi and Ye Wangxi followed behind. Well, at least it bought, was it Xu Xiaoyan? What's his name again? Our favorite uncle. Yeah, Xu Jingyong. At least it bought Xu Zhengyong some time to come up with a politically correct solution. Once in Loyalty Hall, Taxia Palace's messenger bowed respectfully. The million lips parted as she announced, "I bring an urgent message. We have news of Xu Shuangling's whereabouts." The color drained from Ye Wangxi's face. "Our sect dispatched 10,000 of our jade butterflies to follow Xu Shuangling's trail," the messenger continued. "This morning, 2 finally returned. They discovered traces of a spiritual disturbance near Mount Huang. The palace leader believes Xu Shuangling may have taken refuge there. She gave immediate orders to deliver this news to each of the major sects so you may convene and discuss." Xu Zhengyong was overjoyed. "You found him?" "We cannot be sure yet," replied the messenger, "but the jade butterflies reported a persistent stench of blood lingering around Mount Huang in the recent days. There's a good chance Xu Shuangling is hiding on the mountain." Xu Zhengyong clapped open. Sorry, what? Where did that come from? Xu Zhengyong clapped once and jumped to his feet. "Outstanding. Now that we have something to go on, there's no time to lose. What is the palace leader thinking?" "The palace leader is of the same mind as you, sect leader. She feels the time is of the essence, and we ought to investigate at once." "Excellent." Xu Zhengyong turned to Huang Xiaohua. Wow. I'm just pulling names out of thin air at this point. Huang Xiaoye. "Huang Daozhang, why don't we go together? Xu Shuangling is the one to blame for your troubles. If we catch him, you can avenge your brother." Huang Xiaoye's heart thudded in his chest. He knew it would be nigh impossible for him to kill Xu Shuangling on his own, which is why he settled for people that he felt he could kill. That's the only actual reason why he went after them, is because he was too scared to go after the other culprit. Besides, all this talk of avenging his brother was nothing more than flimsy pretense. After all, it wasn't as if the young Nanggongsi and Ye Wangxi really had anything to do with his brother's death. This is a patchwork reading of a day, oh my goodness. Huang Xiaoye blustered about justice for his brother, but privately he had other motives. The recent crisis had severely diminished Jiangdong Hall's strength, and Huang Xiaoye had long heard rumors that Rufeng sect possessed a secret trove of treasure. If you could capture Nanggongsi and Ye Wangxi and force them to release the ancestral seal, those valuables would fall into his hands. It's gonna sound weird, and I'm glad he's not planning on killing Nanggongsi and Ye Wangxi, but I respected him more when I thought he had the guts to actually follow through on what he was claiming. He clenched his fists within his sleeves. After a moment's consideration, he forced himself to smile, face creased like a basic cut, I think. Tangerine, and we're mentioning tangerines again, which, considering the book we're reading, is not good. It's too early to say whether Xu Shuangling is truly on Mount Huang. The bridges between Jiangdong Hall and Rufeng sect have already been burned. It's not only my personal grievance that hangs in the balance, but the reputation of all sects. This will require a careful reckoning. Fair enough, said Xu Zhengyong. How about we find Xu Shuangling for your personal grievance first, and you can settle your debts with Rufeng sect later. An interesting proposition, Xu Zhangmen. But Rufeng sect is scorched earth these days. Where do you suppose I ought to go to settle my debts? To the same place where you thought the scorched earth would still contain some kind of treasure. This man is not doing anything right now. Oh my goodness. I'm afraid I don't know. Huang Daozhang, you'll have to answer that question yourself. Xu Zhengyong chuckled. Since Rufeng sect has been reduced to a pile of rubble, why are you in such a hurry to eliminate these two youngsters? You... Huang Xiaoye snarled, waving his sleeves with a scowl. That's none of your business. You were talking about the reputations of all the sects just a moment ago, but now it's none of our business. Shimeng asked with a smile. Jiangdongho is one of the 9 great sects of the upper cultivation realm. Shouldn't you be a bit more considerate? Sorry, not considerate, consistent. Huang Xiaoye knew he was in the wrong, but he could think of no repose, and thus retorted with glaring viciously at Xu. Wow. Words are hard today, apparently. Let's try that again. Huang Xiaoye knew he was in the wrong, but he could think of no repose, and thus resorted to glaring viciously at Xu Zhengyong in silence. At last, he shook out his sleeves and stalked to the gate with Jiang Dongho's disciples trailing after him. Leaping onto his sword, he led the crowd out of Session Peak towards Mount Huang. Yirongxi was weighed down with remorse. Xu Rongmen, I'm sorry for the trouble. A hunter, wouldn't kill a baby bird and that fell into his net, said Xu Zhengyong. As he watched Jiang Dongho's contingent dwindle into the distance, his smile faded, and his eyes grew cold. Jiang Dongho was beyond vicious. He gazed into the sunlight outside the hall, a faint frown creasing his brow. Finally, he sighed. Come, let's go to Mount Huang. Okay, it's not so much what it means that's the issue, it's how it's pronounced. Thank you, I appreciate that. Oh, okay. Let me just quickly sip some tea and then we can continue. This has been a very messy start to the live. The party from Session Peak sets out on a long journey to Mount Huang via sword. By the time they reached the mountain, a large group of cultivators from each of the other 9 major sects had already convened at its base. Indistinct faces darted to and fro like a school of carp, the reason for their urgency unclear. Chuaning was first to dismount from his sword. His first steps on the ground wobbled slightly, his face stark white. Fortunately, his complexion was pale to begin with, and no one noticed aught amiss. No one but Moran. He sidled up to Chuaning and lightly rubbed the back of his hand while nobody was looking. Shizun, you flew very well. Really? Moran smiled. Chuaning cleared his throat and looked away. Raising his eyes to the top of Mount Huang, he found it shrouded in a visible haze of malevolent qi. At the moment, the leaders of the other 8 sects were heading the group at the foot of the mountain. Hands raised, they funneled spiritual energy into a towering barrier before them. Xu Zhengyong touched down and rushed over to help. The rest of Session Peak's cultivators arrived one after another. Xu Meng landed nimbly next to Moran and Chuaning, frowning at the scene before them. What are they doing? Why aren't we going up the mountain? It's not that we aren't, it's that we can't, Moran replied. Why not? Xu Meng asked, perplexed. Mount Huang is one of the cultivation realm's 4 great evil mountains, said Chuaning. It's a strange place and one not easily breached. Xu Meng was taken aback. I've heard of the 4 great holy mountains, but not 4 great evil ones. What mountains are these? Mount Zhao, Mount Shell, Mount Hell? Shumeng asked incredulously. Shell, referring to the Shuang Wu, the Ebon tortoise. It's interesting that this is getting referenced again in this, while also being referenced in MXTX's work. I'm assuming it's some kind of like mythological beast that you see popping up in multiple different myths. Oh, a flush crept up Shumeng's cheeks. Uh-huh. Mount Liao, and this right here, Mount Huang. Chuaning paused. They're relics of the cultivation realm's bloody past. People seldom speak of them these days. I only know of them because I came across some obscure records. But why would evil mountains exist in the first place? Chuaning responded with a question of his own. Do you remember how the founder of Rufeng sect prevailed over the evil Zhao dragon? I do, said Chuang. The Zhao wanted the East Sea. Rufeng sect's founder defeated the monster and sealed it within the Golden Drum Tower, and formed a blood contract to use it for his own ends. After the founder's death, the Zhao transformed into a mountain. Its sinew turned to earth, its blood turned to rivers, its bones to boulders, and its scales to the woods on its slopes. Ooh, that's a cool myth. The peak protects the graves of generations of Rufeng disciples, so they call Mount Zhao the hero's tomb. Chuaning nodded. Precisely. Mount Zhao was formed from the evil spirits of the Azure Dragon. You're familiar with the constellations of the 4 auspicious beasts, the Azure Dragon, the Vermilion Bird, and the White Tiger, and the Ebon Tortoise. These beasts are legendary guardians of the 4 cardinal directions. Oh, right, that's where that comes from. But some of their descendants are evil beings that wreak havoc upon the earth. Comprehension dawned on Shumeng. So the other evil mountains are all formed from the spirits of the evil beasts, like Mount Zhao. Then Mount Huang was the descendants of the Vermilion Bird. Shumeng whipped around to look up at the mountain craft within the malignant haze like a colossal beast. Its central peak was prestigious, but the slopes at its shoulders were perceptuous, not unlike a phoenix crowning with its neck outstretched. Indeed, answered Chuaning, the 4 evil mountains each have their own dangers. For example, no one can scale Mount Zhao unless escorted by descendants of Rufeng sect's founding blood. Dragon sinew vines will drag any trespassers into the mud and bury them alive. Mount Huang is similar. Oh joy! Not concerning at all. Weird. Shumeng turned to look at the sect leaders lined up in front of the barrier, his father among them. Everyone knows Mount Zhao belongs to Rufeng sect, then what about Mount Huang? Don't we need to find the descendants of whoever subdued the Vermilion Bird and drag them over? Sir Tiny Phoenix, do you not, at all think about where your name might have originated from? And maybe I'm wrong, but, if there's any sect that might have the direct descendants of that, I feel like our sect might be the one. I don't know. Moran at last broke his silence. If the descendant were still alive, sure, but she just recently passed away in an accident. Oh! Shimon blinked. You knew her? I do, Moran said indifferently. We all know her. Was it, Mrs. Butterfly Bones? I can't remember her name. Song Chi-tong? a lot of conversation going on here. I feel like I can't check all of it now. I will go back and read it later. Chapter 199. Shizun's first disciple. Ooh, okay. Huh? Who was it? Was she the only one Man Huang would answer to? No other descendants? Shimeng demanded. Moran didn't answer him directly. The vermilion bird was subdued 1,000 years ago by one Song Qiao, courtesy name Xingyi. Shimeng paled. The jade-hearted Lord Song Xingyi? He blurted. But he was the last Zhongshu from the tribe of the Butterfly Bone Beauty Feast in the history of the cultivation realm. Great! Damn it. That's right, said Moran, his face devoid of expression. The last person who could have opened the gates to Mount Huang perished in Rufeng Sect's inferno. It was Song Shutong. Did she perish though? Don't you think it's convenient that he somehow found his way onto this mountain? I don't remember if we actually ever saw her corpse, so it's not completely impossible that he kidnapped her because he was planning to use this place to hide out because he knew that no one else would be able to enter it if he had her. Shimeng's jaw dropped. Before he could reply, there was a commotion in the distance. A crowd of cultivators in the jade-green robes of Bitan Manor had rushed over to the barrier. Li Zhuangzhu, several of them cried out in alarm. A shift came over Chu Wanling's expression, and he gravely made his way through the crowd. Li Wuxin had collapsed and was propped up in the disciple's arms. His face was paper white as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His salt and pepper beard stained a pungent scarlet. His lips were blue, and only the whites of his eyes were visible as they rolled up into his head. Insensible, he muttered tremulously, "I'm first. I came in first." With the absence of Li Wuxin's spiritual energy, the barrier sapped the strength of the remaining sect leaders more rapidly. Huang Xiaoye had just come into power within Jiangdong Hall. His ability was a cut below the others. He was at his limits and could hardly even turn his head. Jiang Xi had also paled, but he willed himself to look over at Li Wuxin. He has been afflicted with the Phoenix's nightmare. The legendary Phoenix had imbued Mount Huang's barrier with its own spells. Any who sought to break through the charge up the mountain risked succumbing to this horrifying vision. The Phoenix's nightmare was similar to the heart-pluck willow's illusions from Jincheng Lake, yet more difficult to escape. Those afflicted often never reawakened. Well, tell me some more good news, why don't you? All the Bitan Manor disciples had fallen to their knees. Someone wailed tearfully, "Manor Lord, please wake up, Manor Lord." The dreaming Li Wuxin giggled and muttered to himself. Suddenly he squirmed out of the arms of the disciple, Zhen Zhongming, who was supporting him. Lying on his back, his hands scrabbled in midair as he burst into laughter. I came in first. I came in first. First place. First place. That sounds relatively harmless in terms of dreams, but maybe it's more grim than we're realizing right now. Li Wuxin couldn't answer, trapped in the joyous dreamscape. He bared his blood-stained teeth in an intoxicated grin. Yet, after a while, the dream seemed to take a turn. His wizened features froze, settling into a furious scowl. "No, you can't do that. You can't. You said you were going to return Bitan Manor's sword technique scrolls to me. How could you go back on your word?" His expression turned sorrowful again. This was a truly alarming sight. Liu Wuxin had ever been mindful of his reputation. In his time as the leader of Bitan Manor, no one had seen him betray such anger or grief. As he lay on the ground now, he didn't look like a sect leader, nor like a Taoist. He scarcely looked like a man. Drool pulled at the corners of his mouth, and his wrinkled features distorted with despair, as if he could preserve his dignity by hiding it in the folds of skin that lined his aged face. 8 billion gold is asking far too much. Those scrolls were Bitan Manor's to begin with. They belonged to the Shifu of my Shifu. Back then, the sect fell on hard times. We sold them to you out of desperation. Sect leader, I'm begging, please lower the price. At this, a murmur rippled through the crowd. 8 billion gold? A sword manual? A few still remember the previous head of Bitan Manor, a blunt and fury-tempered man who had alienated himself from his fellow sect leaders in the upper cultivation realm. When Bitan Manor came upon hard times, none were willing to lend a hand. After that, Bitan Manor's fortunes had gone from bad to worse. For 3 years straight, they hadn't even found funds to support their own disciples. Somehow they came into money again, but for some mysterious reason, Bitan Manor's awe-inspiring water-parting sword technique, previously renowned throughout the land, had been lost. Subsequent generations of disciples could never master the crux of this technique. Some denizens of the Jianghu mocked Li Wuxin as an incompetent teacher under his leadership. Bitan Manor, who had once produced legendary swordmen of unparalleled ability, were reduced to the laughingstocks of the upper cultivation realm. So I'm assuming this is the same one that they used to construct the water prison that we saw in like the second or third volume. I can't remember when that was. There was something I wanted to ask as well. Okay, not so much ask, I'm just more worried because if either Moran or Chuanning are hit with this, not only obviously are their lives in danger, but this could very rapidly expose a lot of secrets that both of them want to keep hidden at a very inopportune time. So I'm kind of worried. Mm. But witnessing this now, the crowd realized the situation wasn't so simple. Could it be that Bitan Manor had managed to survive all those years ago by selling its founding sword manual? Faced with this act of shameless profiteering, many minds went immediately to one particular sect. Numerous surreptitious gazes swept over Jiangxi. Could it have been Gu Yuye? It was probably Jiangmen's Shizun. Li Wuxin was still writhing on the ground in agony as Zheng Zhongming struggled to hold him in place. The old man sobbed and railed, then struggled up from the ground, kowtow every which way, blood and mucus streaming down his face. Please give it back to me. I've spent half my life savings. I have 5,100,000,000 gold, Li Wuxin wailed. 5,100,000,000 is all I've got. I've done all I can. We have no more than this. I won't kill or steal or resort to evil for money. Gold flows into your esteemed sect like water, but Bitan Manor really doesn't have any more than this. Please, I'm begging you. I actually now have more respect for him because even when he doesn't realize that he is outing so many things, he's still being quite noble. And that is, I don't think, would be easy to do in the middle of a nightmare when you're not fully cognizant of yourself. On hearing gold flows into your esteemed sect like water, even those who hadn't yet eyed Jiang Shi before turned to look at him. Jiang Shi controlled Xuanyuan Pavilion, the biggest black market auction house in the entire cultivation realm. Who else could it be? One of Bitan Manor's young disciples shouted at Jiang Shi, eyes scarlet with fury. Jiang Jiangmen, your Guyu has possession of the 3 most important scrolls of my Bitan Manor's water-parting sword. To think you asked for 8 billion gold? Have you no shame? I thought this was just a dream. I don't necessarily think you can take his word for a nightmare that he's having. Like, yeah, maybe some of it is based in truth, but I don't necessarily know if the 8 million gold or 8 billion gold dam is something that actually would have been asked. Before Jiang Shi could reply, a hoarse voice called out from the left. There's no evidence. How dare you accuse Jiang Jiangmen so harshly? Surprisingly, the speaker was Huang Xiaoye. Barely able to gasp for breath at this point, the geezer couldn't stop his hand from shaking on the barrier. Yet he jumped to defend Jiang Shi. His intentions were unmistakable. An incensed Bitan Manor disciple lunged towards Huang Xiaoye, ready to curse him out, as one of his sect mates bodily restrained him. Guys, calm down, you can't take the word of dreams. Jinfu, don't provoke them. Moran froze. Jinfu? Very wealthy? It would normally have prompted a laugh, like Jin Chongming's very smart. But as he watched the bedraggled Li Wuxin kowtowing over and over in the dirt, all he felt was bitterness and pity. 5 billion isn't enough? Then how about 5,500,000,000? Li Wuxin wiped tears with his sleeves. 5,500,000,000. I'll do some business with the Chang family of Yi Zhuo and sell off some magical devices and spiritual stones. I can put it together. 5,500,000,000. Sect leader, please. Please show some compassion, some mercy. Please just give the sword manual back to me. Back bent, he knocked his forehead on the ground again and again until the skin was raw and blood trickled down his face. Does someone maybe want to try and hold him back just a little bit? Water parting sword manual is the soul of Bitan Manor, Li Wuxin sobbed. Before my master ascended, his last wish was for me to reclaim the manual. I've done everything in my power. I've dedicated my life. My hair has gone from black to white. I begged your father first, then you. I even begged Luo Fenghua. Ah, so it's... because I was thinking it could all have still been Wu Feng sect. But then I was like, oh, poor Wu Feng sect just getting everything dropped at their door. But now it's not seeming as unlikely. Huh? There was a collective intake of breath. Luo Fenghua? Liu Wuxin had begged Luo Fenghua. So it wasn't Guyu Ye, it was... Countless heads turned. Without anyone taking so much as a single step forward or back, a path somehow cleared through the sea of people. Every member of every sect craned their necks to look at Nanggongsi and Ye Wangxi, where they stood at the edge of the crowd. It's Rufeng sect. There was no more need to whisper. Shouts rose from the throng. How could they? No wonder Rufeng sect's sword technique improved by leaps and bounds over the past 3 decades. People were saying they'd started to resemble those of the old legendary masters. What brutes! Nanggongsi came in 3rd at the Spiritual Mountain competition because of stolen sword techniques. He's a fraud. Again, I have some issues with this thing of blaming someone who is innocent in something simply because of their connection to someone who did a bad thing. Sickening. Nanggongsa was rooted to the spot, his expression wooden. He had no idea what crimes his father and the other Rufang sect elders before him had committed. Those burdens ought to have fallen on all of Rufang sect's 72 cities, but now they were his alone to bear. Yes, and they just keep coming, like that's what makes it worse. He didn't flee, but neither did he speak up. He stood in silence, his face ashen. Yuangxi reached out for his hand, but Nanggongse shifted away without batting an eye. He stepped in front of Yuangxi. He has the nerve to show himself here? With a rank person like that for a father? How could the son be any better? Bitan Manor was the angriest of all. Get lost, someone bellowed at Nanggongse and Yuangxi. Get out of here. There's no place for Rufang among the 10 great sects anymore. Why are you still standing there? You rotten bastards, where do you get off? Impassioned curses and rebukes assailed them from all sides. Hatred was etched into every face. Someone pelted out of the crowd. Bitan Manor's green ropes flying and grabbed Nanggongse by the lapels. Sir, Yuangxi cried. In the chaos, Nanggongse shoved her out of the way. The Bitan Manor disciple pinned Nanggongse to the ground, raining blows down on his face, his chest, his stomach. There was no spiritual energy behind the punches, but each landed with ferocious violence. A low, stern voice suddenly rang out. Stop! Nanggongse had taken a punch squarely on his handsome face. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, his hair in disarray, covered in mud as he lay on the ground. The enraged Bitan disciple had just drawn back for another blow when someone grabbed his arm. The disciple howled, whipping around. I don't need you to. He choked on the rest. The man before him was none other than the world's foremost Zongshi, Chuaning. Stop. Chuaning looked down at him, his eyes like a frigid mountain stream. His expression was impossible to describe, containing too many emotions, yet none at all. Gripping the young man's arm, he pressed his lips into a thin line. Stop fighting, he said after a beat. Nanggongse spit blood into the dirt. Yuangxi rushed forward to help him up, but he stopped her with a wave. Don't waste your energy. These are Rufang sect's debts. I'm answerable for them in my father's stead. You are not. Go away with that self-harm. If anything, the disciple grew more incensed upon hearing this. He struggled to pull free of Chuaning's grip and threw himself He struggled to pull free of Chuaning's grip and throw himself at Nanggongse once more. Stop fighting, Chuaning commanded, brows drawn low. It's none of your business. You're from Shizun Peak. This has nothing to do with you. The disciple snarled, mad with fury. How can you treat my Shifu like this? How? How can you treat Bitan Manor like this? We've groveled at Rufang sect's feet for so many years. Why? He bellowed piteously. 'Cause he didn't? I don't know where you missed that memo. Behind him, Li Wuxin moaned and begged. He was trapped in his own consciousness, pleading with Nanggong Liu in his vision. Lu Fenghua said he would return the manual to me, but he didn't know where it was. Sect leader, you promised me. I'm 79. How many more years do I have? My cultivation's not strong enough for me to ascend. I probably won't be able to see my Shizun again, but I must complete the one task he left to me. I must. Each word was like a clot of blood squeezed from Li Wuxin's throat. I can't fail, sect leader, he wailed. Please give it back. Return Bitan Manor's rightful property to me. I beg you. The Bitan Manor disciple shuddered. Chuaning's hand, too, trembled where he gripped the young man. Tears of hatred and incredulity stood out in the disciple's eyes, but he couldn't win free. At last, he reared back and spit on Chuaning, the gob of saliva landing on his cheek. Zongshi? No, all of you are bastards, and I hope you get a right smack. And what frustrates me is these people are so quick to just jump onto whichever hate train they think they have a right to be on in a given second. Because 2 seconds ago they were completely fine with accusing Jiang Shi without any evidence. And now they're like, oh, okay, now we think we know that this is real and we should be taking it seriously, so we're just immediately gonna jump and dogpile onto Nang Gongse, who's completely innocent in all of this. Like, for all they know, this could be a nightmare that isn't based in a complete reality. They're just assuming that it is. Shizun, Moran, stay where you are, don't come over. Chuaning released the disciple, who made an immediate rush towards the bruised and battered Nang Gongse. There was a flash of gold light. Yes, give me frickin' what's his whip called? It's not Tian Chuan. What's his whip called? But give me his whip, please. There was a flash of golden light. A high-tongue barrier descended around Nang Gongse. That works as well. And Yewangxi, protecting them within. Chuaning had come down onto one knee. Now he slowly straightened and gazed at the indistinct faces of the watching crowd. Chuaning stood at one end. Li Wuxin, covered in blood and tears, kneeled at the other. Li Wuxin's aged voice was like a creaking tree branch in the winter, piercing the heavens with every word. Isn't 500 million enough? Okay. I thought we might be able to finish a chapter before I pause for the 10-minute break, but we still have some ways to go, so I am gonna stop here for the 10 minutes and then we will be back at 1:15 to finish up the rest of the hour. Okay. The audio is still okay. Let's just see. It's on the chance. Okay, so for anyone still following along with their own copies, we were at the top of page 237. Caught within a dreamscape, the old man was still haggling with Nangong Liu. There was nothing of his dignity left, his wizened features crumbling like salt. 5,800,000,000? His voice quivered. Chuaning closed his eyes. Beneath wide sleeves, his clenched fingers were shaking. Still, he said, deliberately enunciating each word. One account of my deep regret for Rong Yan, mother of Nangong Se. In the great shadow of Mount Hong, before a crowd of thousands, the only sounds were Li Wuxin wailing and Chuaning's low and austere voice. On one side, Li Wuxin muttered 5,800,000,000. Surely that's enough. There are just 3 volumes of sword techniques after all. On the other, Chuaning intoned, when I came down from the mountain, I had no money, nor did I know how to ask for aid from others. It was Madame Rong's kindness of the meal that allowed me to remain at Rufang Sect for a time. Then he paused. Only Li Wuxian's sobs could be heard. Madame Rong once asked me to take her son Nangong Se as my disciple. I was young and unqualified. I did not accept. But back then, Chuaning turned his head a fraction to glance at Nangong Se, where he lay on the ground. He spoke for the watching crowd, slowly and clearly recounting this event even Nangong Se might not remember. Back then, Madame Rong brought her youngest son before the ancestral temple and bade him bow to me thrice. She said, since Nangong Se had performed the rites to take me as his teacher, should I be willing to remain at Rufang Sect, Nangong Se would honor his pledge. Chuaning looked up. Nangong Se is my disciple. I mean, technically you didn't stay at Rufang Sect, but I still appreciate how he's sticking up for Nangong Se. The instant he heard this, Shimeng's face drained of color. Moran and Shimei's, oh, hi, Shimei, I wondered if he was here. And Shimei's faces also fell, but none said a word as they stared at Chuaning. If sons must shoulder their father's debts, so too must one who has served but a single day as a teacher afford his people a lifetime of protection. Nangong Se had bowed to me thrice. He can call me his Shifu. Chuaning said, his Shifu is present. If you have grievances to avenge or beatings to dole out, I am here. And I am willing not to resist. Shizun! Moran, Shimei, and Shimeng fell to their knees one after another, while Nangong Se tried to struggle up from the ground. Blood leaked from his lips as he mumbled, no, I didn't. I never bowed. I don't have a Shifu. I don't have a Shifu. On the other side, Li Wuxin let out a keening cry. Face upturned to the sky, mustache fluttering like a wind-blown snow, he opened his eyes wide, blood streaming down his cheeks. He howled and screamed, sobbing and stammering, 5,900,000,000. Surely that's enough. Nangong Zhangmen, 5,900,000,000. Please, take pity on this old man and write off whatever remains. Leave me something to take to the grave. Please, won't you? Please? Like a lamb bearing its neck for the slaughter, he cried with a final piercing sob, veins bulging. With this third desperate entreaty, Li Wuxin coughed up a great gout of blood that spattered across the ground. Only silence remained. Li Wuxin collapsed with a soft thud. He was the leader of the bottom-ranked sect of the upper cultivation realm. In life, he had been an old man who ran about like a clown, sparing no effort to kiss up to any sect that might lend him a hand. He had spent most of his life trying to reclaim 3 measly sword technique scrolls, only to come away empty-handed, reduced to a laughingstock. He was a useless mediocrity who had crumpled wide-eyed into dust and died. The wind whistled past. All sorts of expressions passed over the faces of the crowd, but no one spoke a word. Moran suddenly remembered. There was a treasure trove hidden on Mount Zhao, with enough riches to revitalize any sect. Even Zhang Dongho knew of this. Bitan Manor had many dealings with the Blue sect. They would naturally know of it as well. After Nangong Liu's demise, sects large and small sought to capture Nangong Si and Nilongxi. Perhaps they claimed it was for vengeance. In truth, every one of them had designs on that mountaintop fortune. And yet, Bitan Manor was never among them. Bitan Manor had spent its time clumsily trying to get into Certain Peak and Gu Yuye's good graces, hoping they might aid and support each other in the future. Liu Shen's thoughts had never turned to Rufeng Sect's treasure, despite being bullied and humiliated by Rufeng Sect all his life. Perhaps it was because of this that the old man knew all too well, as desirable as wealth might be, the injustice that came with it was too much to bear. From a distance, Moran gazed at Liu Shen's pathetically filthy face crushed into the dirt. It dawned on him then, on the night of Rufeng Sect's calamity, when everyone else had fled in all directions, Liu Shen had remained behind despite his terror. His abilities were unexceptional, yet he'd steeled himself to brave the inferno. His sword had rescued dozens of complete strangers. Please don't make me cry. I don't want to cry. It was said the founder of Bitan Manor had a technique called the water parting sword, capable of cleaving water and splitting the skies. History venerated him as a legendary swordman. But Liu Shen had lost 3 volumes of the sword manual. He couldn't learn this miraculous sword technique or become a swordsman sage like his forebears. He could only expand his sword while the fire roared. He knew none of the people he rescued. Among them were many of Rufeng Sect's own disciples. Nevertheless, he had used his blade to bring every last one of them out of that sea of flames and return them to the world of the living. Damn, that hits hard. Okay. Let me just take a sip of tea before we keep going. See? Okay, a little bit hot now that I've taken some tea. There was a lot going on early in the stream, but we're doing okay now. Okay, chapter 200, Shizun Mount Huang has opened its gates. So I had this thought that somehow Chuaning was related to the butterfly bone beast beauty things. I can't get the order of the name right. And that neither he nor anyone else knows about it. And the title, I'm kind of now thinking, is that at all a possibility? Because we still have so much about Chuanling's past that we don't know about. None of Bitan Manor's disciples imagined their leader would succumb before the battle even began. Li Wuxin was getting on in years. He had begun to show his age in his carriage. Yet he would never have met such a sudden end if not for the barrier's illusion spell, throwing his spiritual energy flow into fatal disorder. There was a long silence. Then the green robes of Bitan Manor rippled as its disciples fell to their knees. Their mournful cries rent the heavens as the rest of the crowd looked on. Even the disciples who'd attacked Nanggongse could no longer bring himself to fight. Weeping, he crawled over to his sect leader, swiping sleeves across his face as his tears flowed without cease. The towering barrier before Mount Hong let out an ear-splitting shriek. Jiangxi blanched. Someone came to take Li Wuxin's place. He barked. Someone come to take Li Wuxin's place, he shrieked. Barked, damn it. Or we'll all die here today. Xu Zhengyong turned. Yu Heng, he shouted, come quick and lend a hand. Chuaning didn't need to be told twice. His expertise, after all, was in barriers. The screech they'd heard from the curse left behind by the evil spirit of the phoenix. If this curse had reared its head, the sect leaders and elders weren't far from breaking through the barrier altogether. Should they succeed, all would be well. But, should they fail, this curse would backfire with an earth-shattering strength, potentially more dire than the apocalyptic inferno that had laid waste to Rufeng sect. Will there be anything left of the cultivation world by the end of this series of volumes, or are we not allowed to hope for that? Chuaning leapt forward at once, his gaze sharp as the honed edge of a blade. He landed in the spot vacated by Li Wuxin and reached up with a sweep of his sleeves. The moment his fingers touched the barrier, Chuaning flinched in surprise. His head whipped around to look at Huang Xiaoye, standing silently beside him. Huang Xiaoye was shaking from head to toe, dripping with sweat, his face flushed with exertion. He looked as though he was giving all he had to the effort, and the other sect leaders certainly seemed to think this was the case. Perhaps he could fool others, but how could he fool the barrier Zongshu Chuaning? As soon as Chuaning stepped into Li Wuxin's place, he could feel that the barrier's retaliatory energy was overly concentrated there, compared to the other sect leaders. Li Wuxin had likely been inundated with double the amount of demonic energy as he stood in the spot. Seldom did such imbalances arise in cooperative arrays. When they did, there was only one possibility. The next cultivator over wasn't pulling their weight. Huang Xiaoye was putting on an act. Chuaning's fury was instantaneous. His dark brows drew together as he thundered, You! The nerve of you to play games like that! What? Between gasps, Huang Xiaoye's voice was faint as a mosquito's buzz. He looked, and probably just as annoying. He looked as though he might perish in the next moment. All the nearby sect leaders, with any energy to spare, looked over at the commotion. Zongshu, what do you mean? What games? Huang Xiaoye mumbled, as if you don't know. Get the hell out of my sight. Xu Zhengyong couldn't stand still. Yuheng, what are you yelling at Huang Daozhang? He called. Look at him. He can barely speak. If there's a problem, let's talk it out after we open the barrier. Huang Xiaoye snuck a glance at Chuaning. The eyes that met his were like a frost-rimmed dagger. A chill washed over his heart. He never had the ability to open the Phoenix barrier in the first place. He had only rushed to the front of the crowd and pretended to help the aim of burnishing his own reputation. The upper cultivation realm needed to know that Jiangdong Hall was still formidable, and Huang Xiaoye was a man to be reckoned with. He never expected that wimp Li Wuxin would buckle under the double demonic energy. ending up a target of the barrier's backlash and snapping it right next to him. Do you know that middle finger I mentioned earlier? It's wanting to manifest itself, shall we say, again. And his death would have been no big deal if the person who took his place hadn't been Chuaning, this damned Shizun who deserved to be hacked into mincemeat. Cold sweat ran down Huang Xiaoye's greasy face. This wasn't part of his act anymore. What do I do? He wondered. Faced with imminent danger, Huang Xiaoye bit down fiercely on his own tongue. As warm blood filled his mouth, he let the blood spittle drip from the corner of his lips. Zongshi, I swear there has been a misunderstanding. When Li Zhuangzhu collapsed, I really can't. He coughed violently, flecks of blood flying. I really can't take much more. As if Chuaning would fall for this. Between Li Wuxin and Huang Xiaoye, it was patently clear who was more capable. If both truly gave their all, the first to I think that's supposed to say flounder, not founder. The first to flounder would never have been Li Wuxin. With a furious snap of his sleeves, Chuaning summoned Tianwen. There we go, that's the name. One lash sent Huang Xiaoye flying through the air to crumple a dozen feet away. Out! Yes, thank you, that was satisfying. Ayo! Yang Dongho's horrified disciples rushed forward and clustered around their fallen leader. More than a few others turned glares upon Chuaning. Shu Zongshi, why must you be so unreasonable? Hong Daojiang was doing his best. There was no need to wave your whip around and throw a fit? You think you should abuse people just because you can? Chuaning barely heard those indignant squabbles. Rage seethed in his chest, and his phoenix eyes glittered like ice. In the light from the barrier, his eyes seemed to flash scarlet. Get the hell out! His voice wasn't loud, but it was threatening in the extreme. Those who knew Chuaning understood that they might succeed in reasoning with him were he merely berating or reprimanding someone. But once he got this look in his eyes, resolute and unbending, no one could stand in his way. If anyone was foolish enough to try, one furious strike from Tianwen might mark their end. Yuheng, what's going on? Shi Zhengyong asked weakly. Huang Xiaoye, did you expend even a scrap of energy to open the phoenix's barrier? Chuaning was so incensed, vines protruded from the hand he braced against the barrier. Sorry, not vines, veins. When Li Wuxin reached his limit next to you, did you shoulder even an ounce of his burden? What are you talking about? Cried a female disciple from Jiangdongho. Our Huangdong Daozhang is spitting blood. Yet you're accusing him of not giving enough? Will you only be satisfied if he keels over and dies like Li Zhuangzhu? Yes. In this case, yes. Chuaning's dark brows drew together in a scowl, but as he made to reply, the colossal barrier before him shuddered. A blood-red glow enveloped the sect leader's palms, pressed to its surface. Focus, Jiang Shi called. This is the last layer. We're about to break through. Chuaning had no wish to argue with these lunatics. Turning back to the work at hand, he threaded his fingers together and placed both hands on the barrier. A spiritual energy laced with fury poured through his palms. A rift appeared in the red wall. There was a resounding crash as a tremor rumbled through the earth. A huge rip had split Mount Huang's great barrier, more than 8 feet tall and wide enough for 5 people to walk through abreast. It's open! Shi Zhengyong whooped. The barrier's open! He stepped forward, craning his neck for a better look, and was hit in the face by a plum of deep red miasma. "Ayo," he cried. "What's that awful smell?" The rest of the cultivators rushed up to take a look, immediately forgetting Bitan Manor and Jiangdong Hall. Abbot Shenzhen of Wubai Temple was well versed in such matters. Twirling his prayer beads in his hands, he said solemnly, "This mountain is a burial ground. The number of bodies on Mount Huang and the resentful energy there accumulated likely far exceeds our expectations. Looks like that rat bastard Shu Xianglin made this mountain his hideout after all," said Jiang Shi, his expression gloomy. He glanced over his shoulder. "Listen up. Anyone who's injured, scared, useless, or pretending—" At this point, his chilly eyes swept over Huang Xiaoye, still lying on the ground. He let out a soft snort. "All of you remain at the bottom of the mountain. The rest will come up with me." I'm kind of living for this just a little bit. Shimeng watched Chuaning step through the rift in the barrier and rush to catch up, only to realize Moran wasn't beside him. He surveyed his surroundings and saw a commotion around Nanggongsi. Bitan Manor's grieving disciples still hoped to avenge themselves, despite the protective barrier Chuaning had put down. A crowd of hateful faces still surrounded Nanggongsi, hurling curses and insults. "Moran, what are you doing?" Shimeng called out. "Urgent. Everyone's going up the mountain. Let's go. You go on ahead. Keep an eye on Shizun and Shimei." Moran replied, "If you run into trouble, send a messenger flower right away." Shimeng had no choice but to leave them. By now, only those from Bitan Manor and Jiangdong Hall remained at the bottom of the mountain. Moran tore his gaze away from Shimeng's departing figure. "I understand how you all must feel, but Nanggongzi has nothing to do with the sword manual," he said. "If you must settle your debts, at least wait till we've captured Shu Shuanglin. These are two different matters entirely. Shu Shuanglin and Nanggongzi both have to pay. That's right, neither of them can escape." Zhen Tongming was one of the more reasonable ones in the group. He stared at Moran through red-rimmed eyes. "Mo Zongshi, both you and your Shifu have the title of Zongshi, yet you choose to protect criminals and put your own interests first. I'm trying to remind you that there is a right way to do this," Moran said. "If you really want to redress your grievances with Rufeng sect, wait for things to calm down. Then you can send Shu Shuanglin and his associates to Tianyin Pavilion for questioning according to the rules. The 10 great sects will discuss his case and determine fair punishment. Right now, you are ambushing someone who doesn't intend to fight back. You want to tear him to pieces. But what good will that do?" Zhen Tongming had no ready answer. 10 great sects? Someone cried. "There are only 9. How can you still count Rufeng sect?" "No, there are 8. Zheng Tongming said. His cheeks were streaked with blood from where he'd wiped his tears from cleaning his Shizun's face. Under those bloodstains, he looked miserably forlorn. "There are only 8 sects. Bitan Manor no longer has a leader." I mean, fair is fair. At least he's self-aware enough. "Shishong." Jiang Tongming ignored his weeping Shidi, slowly turning to pin Moran with his gaze. "After the heavenly rift, my Shizun said Sishan Peak was an honorable sect, but I see now that he misjudged you. Just because things aren't going your way doesn't suddenly make them inhonorable. I don't know how to pronounce that. You want to use the law to your advantage when it is to your advantage and disregard it when it isn't." Moran stared at him. "Mo Zongshi, do you insist on protecting these two Rufeng mermen?" asked Jiang Chongmen. Zhang, Zhen, Chong Ming, damn it. Before Moran could reply, Nang Gongse asked Moran, go. Yewangshi had knelt beside Nang Gongse. Now she helped him to his feet with difficulty. She didn't cry or wring her hands. She merely said, voice hoarse, Mo Gongze, you should go up the mountain. This doesn't involve you. Moran cast a sidelong glance at Nang Gongse. You think your allegiance to my Shizun counts for nothing? We're two disciples under the same master. How could it not involve me? You, Nang Gongse started, but Moran turned to look at Zhang Chongming. By now, Zhang Dongho's disciples had joined forces with Bitan Manor to glare at them from all sides. Huang Xiaoye had made his way over with the support of two female disciples, careful to be seen lurching this way and that. Why do I get the feeling he's going to be the new annoyance of the next few volumes? I don't think we're going to see the end of him in this volume, which is such a shame, because I really don't like him. Chest heaving, he widened his eyes to lower at Moran, then waved off the two disciples and jabbed a gnarled finger in Moran's direction. I've lived by the righteous teachings of the upper cultivation realm all my life. I won't stand by and condone such behavior. Huang Daojiang is indeed a great exemplar of the upper cultivation realm's principles, Moran replied coolly. A moment ago, you were at death's door, yet less than 15 minutes later, you're prancing about demanding justice. Your integrity is to be admired. You... Huang Xiaoye burst into a violent coughing fit, clutching his chest as if overwhelmed by his anger. Moran spared him hardly a glance. The green of Bitan Manor and the purple of Jiangdong Hall swirled around the trio. The mob pressed closer, step by step, yet no one dared make the first move. Any strike now would be impossible to take back. Mo Zongshi, Cheng Zhongming said in a low voice, I'll ask you one more time. Do you refuse to step aside? Moran had no chance to reply. A female cultivator's sharp cry rang out from up ahead as a pile of misshapen grey rocks tumbled out of the rift. What's going on? Huang Xiaoye exclaimed. A landslide? Moran narrowed his eyes. This was no landslide. Soon enough the crowd realized it as well, and gasps rose up from the assembly. What had come careening out of the rift? I don't want to read that. I saw what it is, and I don't want to read that. We're charred human bodies. Their limbs and flesh were fused together and oozing, their faces barely recognizable as humans. Please let it not be anyone I care about. Please, please, please. Some of the watching cultivators immediately doubled over and vomited. That's so gross. These things are on the mountain? How many bodies do you think there are? Moran, too, was stricken by the sight. A low rumble came from the slope above. The rift the elders had just torn into the barrier rippled. Slowly, its borders began to shrink. This barrier could repair itself. Before long, it would close up and trap them on the outside. Let's go, Moran said anxiously. Grudges can wait. Zhishuanglin is at the top of the mountain. Are we really not interested in hunting down the ringleader behind the whole mess? The group from Bitan Manor hesitated, but Huang Xiaoye snorted and tugged at his moustache. The best cultivators in the world are at the top of the mountain. They can take care of Zhishuanglin, but these two youngsters from Rufeng sect have been as slippery as eels. If we let them go now, I'm afraid we won't get another chance. Huang Xiaoye, Moran's eyes blazed. There was a flash of scarlet as Jiang Ru materialized in his grip. Are you about done? At the appearance of the holy weapon, all the 100-odd cultivators drew their blades. They eyed him wearily. In his heart, Moran knew this wouldn't end without a fight. He was happy to trade blows with any of them, but these people would undoubtedly view Shizun Peak as aggressor. A low voice from behind disrupted Moran's thoughts. Everyone, please head up the mountain. I, Nanggongse, will wait for you here. I'm not going anywhere. Easy for you to say, kid. But who's going to buy it? Asked Huang Xiaoye. You don't expect me to believe you'll stay here just because you said so, do you? Nanggongse shot him a cold glance and rose to his feet. Without warning, he shoved Ye Wangxi out of the barrier Chuaning had cast. Did he just send her in to be a hostage to keep him in place? Sir, those within the barrier could leave, but those without couldn't go back in. Nanggongse stood alone inside the barrier and slowly drew his sword. No, don't disable yourself in some way right now. Let's not be rash. Nanggongse stood alone inside the barrier and slowly drew his sword. Inch by inch, its snow-bright glare lit his face, his chin, his lips, his nose, his eyes. Huh? Ye Wangxi guessed at once what he was about to do. Pounding her fists against the barrier, she yelled, "Stop messing around." When my ancestors found the sect, he left behind a teaching. As a gentleman of Wufeng sect, I mustn't indulge in greed, resentment, deception, slaughter, obscenity, plunder, or conquest, said Nanggongse. My father failed to live up to this teaching, but in my 26 years, though I may have been headstrong, I have never forsaken this maxim, nor transgressed in commandments. Regarding these 7 taboos, my conscience is clear. I'm scared. The blade whizzed through the air like flowing water. No, cried Ye Wangxi. Moran also saw what Nanggongse intended. He tried to break down Chuaning's barrier, but it could not be so easily undone. Nanggong, he muttered. Nanggongse paid heed to neither Ye Wangxi nor Moran. None of you trust me, so I have no other choice, he said. Fortunately, I know some confinement techniques. I will secure myself here. Please don't implicate anyone else. I, Nanggongse, will not move an inch from the spot. I will wait for your return. Nanggong, blood flowed before Moran had finished, shouting his name. Nanggongse's sword plunged into the ground, half its length disappearing beneath the dirt. Between the blade and the earth was Nanggongse's left hand. Someone needs to keep this child safe from himself, because honestly, using his own sword, Nanggongse had nailed his hands to the ground. Sparks flew from the blade as the confinement curse took hold. Ye Wangxi crashed to her knees in front of the barrier. Nanggongse's blood flowed along the barrier's surface, dyeing the ground red. Her face was lowered, her expression hidden from view. The watchers could only see her clenched hands on the flashing barrier, knuckles white and trembling. Look, I don't generally encourage this kind of thing, and please note this is just because it's a fictional character that I think this is at all an okay thing to do. But in the comments, let me know what are some of the things you wish would happen to Zhang Donghuo's, what's his name? Huang Xiaoye. Because honestly, I can't think of a punishment bad enough for how frustrated and angry I am in this man right now. The curse was used to confine evil creatures, vengeful ghosts, and beasts of burden. Any accomplished cultivator of the upper cultivation realm would recognize it, could use it. Nanggongse had used it to pin himself in place. His lips were bloodless with pain. Shudders racked him, yet he didn't cry. At last, he raised bloodshot eyes. Go, he said, voice firm. Moran rarely found himself shocked, speechless. In the past life, only Ye Wangxi had ever managed this feat. In this life, it was accomplished by the man Ye Wangxi loved. Truth be told, Moran had never understood what Ye Wangxi saw in Nang Gongse. He was a superficial, empty-headed rich brat who chased pretty girls. Why was Ye Wangxi so set on him? But at that moment, Moran saw someone who resembled Ye Wangxi. He was doubled over, writhing in pain, losing blood, yet his resolve was absolute. He saw Nang Gongse. Go, Nang Gongse howled. What are you all standing here for? Do I need to nail my legs to the ground too? Go already. Zheng Tongming was first to turn away. He strode over to Li Wuxin's body, leaning down. He smoothed his sect leader's robes, then picked him up and turned his back to the barrier. Shishong, you aren't staying? Shishong, are we just gonna leave like this? We're just going to let them go? What's the point of staying? Said Zheng Tongming. Who knows how long they'll be fighting in the mountaintop? Should we wait around with the sect leader lying here on the dirt, without even a makeshift coffin? Bitan Manor's disciples looked at one another. One by one, they bowed their heads in silence. Cheng Tongming walked away from the mountain, past Moran. In the moment their shoulders grew level, he spoke. Mo Zongshi, remember what you said. When the battle's over, I'll see you at Tianyan Pavilion. At least we have Tianyan Pavilion to uphold justice in this world. Another interjection. It was the disciple who spat at Chuaning. He fell into step behind his Shishong, red-eyed with anger and bitterness. The pavilion master is an impartial judge. We'll see how Shizun passes on with no regrets. Moran, Nang Gongse, karmas, I'm not going to say it, you low lives, just you wait, your days are numbered. Okay. I'm kind of torn right now because we have like 8 minutes left, so I feel like we should continue even though we're now at the end of a chapter. But let me just quickly discuss, because I'm torn about Bitan Manor. On the one hand, I'm like, fair enough that they're leaving, they lost their leader, that sucks. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, so you lost your leader gave his life for this, and you're just gonna up and like leave and quit and abandon the entire sect's philosophy because you're angry now and, you know, screw the rest of the world. Never mind the fact that there are so many other sects that didn't anger you that are fighting for you, and now you're just leaving them hanging because you're emotional. And like, again, it sounds harsh saying it like that, but I find it so frustrating that they are willing to be like, okay, you know, our sect leader died, and even though you guys are like fighting your hearts out right now and like trying to save the world, we're just gonna quit because we're not happy with this anymore. And by the way, we're not technically part of the 10 great sects anymore, so peace out. But at the same time, they're like, oh, you know, Rufeng sect is not technically part of the great sect anymore because it doesn't exist anymore, but we're still gonna hold them accountable, just don't hold us accountable to our responsibilities. But Rufeng sect, Nang Gongse, one person, hold him accountable for everyone. That is Rufeng sect. The hypocrisy that is going on here is just so infuriating. And I think that's why, like, I don't think I'm communicating my frustration very well, and I don't mean to, like, take away from Bitan Manor's grieving, because they're totally allowed to do that. And I would even go as far as to say, like, it's totally okay for them to be emotional and unreasonable, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's gonna change. And I think that's what frustrates me. Because if you've gone this far, you've seen someone massacre their own hand for your version of justice, and you're still not clicking that something is askew in your worldview, then then I have no hope for you. You know? Sorry if that spiked the mic. Oh, okay. You can see that I'm feeling very protective of Nanggongse right now. Because he didn't choose his crappy dad. Okay. One more sip of tea and then we can finish up with 5 more minutes left to go. I think we'll probably just get 2 pages done, but it's better than nothing. Chapter 201. Shizun, how am I supposed to humiliate you? Huh? Okay. Interesting. With the exits of Beitan Manor, Huang Xiaoye had no more excuses to dawdle. He could do nothing but head up the mountain. Moran was in no mood for time wasting and swiftly stepped through the rift, the disciples of Jiangdong Hall at its heels. Within moments of crossing the barrier, shrieks rose from the ground behind him. The dead were everywhere, lying on the ground, hanging from trees, covering the slopes like swarming ants. They moved and crawled, twitched and convulsed, sluggishly making their way towards the living. They had entered a mountain of corpses. In the face of such a sight, Huang Xiaoye stepped forward alone. He struck out with his horse-tail whisk, hitting several revenants on their heads. Where had this old man found so much courage? But before Moran could wrap his head around it, Huang Xiaoye let out a high-pitched scream. Tell me you're a coward without telling me you're a coward. He collapsed to the ground, his limbs comically sprawled and eyes rolling back in his skull, coughing up bloody spittle. Moran stared, dumbfounded. Why are you even surprised at this point, Moran? Zhang Donghou's disciples rushed forward. Huang Qianbei, Qianbei, not to worry. I've been gravely injured, but I can fight on. Huang Xiaoye made to clamber upright, but his knees gave out. He crumpled back to the ground, panting laboriously. Qianbei, you should rest at the bottom, a disciple said anxiously. There's too much demonic energy here. It's no good for your heart. That's right, another voice crowded in agreement. Huang Xiaoye made a great show of demurring as he coughed up a revolting mixture of blood and phlegm, I think? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. After carrying on with this charade until he was satisfied, he donned an expression of deep regret. At last, with a great swish of robes, he led most of Zhang Donghou's disciples out of the barrier once more, like a school of carp making its way downstream. Why did that barrier not just close on them? Honestly, they're useless. And I think what frustrates me the most about this is their ignorance to their own, helpless, not even helplessness, because it's not helplessness, it's their lack of wanting to help. And the fact that they're not seeing the fact that they're being manipulated. The barrier prevented people from entering but not exiting. Soon only a handful of Jiangdong Hall's people remained on the mountain. Before them appeared a young man making his way down the gentle slope. His hair was long and pale gold, his eyes jade green, and his expression was somber. When he spied Moran, both blinked in surprise. Moran was first to react. Mei Xiong? Mei Hanxue nodded coolly. I feel like I should recognize that name, but it's escaping me. Yeah, in some ways I feel like it's worse because I feel like we're getting more detail about the initial one versus for me with the the ganging up against Wei Wuxian in the present timeline wasn't as bad because we had Lang Wangji supporting Wei Wuxian, but this is somehow worse to me because they're defenseless. And I feel like I would have felt that same way if we had seen the final gang up between Wei Wuxian and everyone the first time around. Like, we did, but anyway, okay. I'm getting sidetracked. Have you seen my Shizun and the others? Moran asked. This is giving to me not so much the final gang up between Wei Wuxian and everyone, but the bridge where we lost Jinling's father. That scene. This is giving me that. Have you seen my Shizun and the others? Moran asked urgently. They're all up ahead. As he spoke, a corpse lurched up behind Mei Hanxue. Moran opened his mouth with a warning when he saw a cold flash of a sword. Mei Hanxue drew his weapon without turning and carved a gaping hole in the corpse's chest. He pulled the sword out with a wet noise, its blade stained with dark blood. Features chilly, Mei Hanxue wiped the blood clean. Are we sure he's not also like a chess piece? 'Cause I don't want that for him. Then said to Moran, straight up this path and take a left at the first fork. There are too many revenants. Everyone is trying to clear the way. Moran thanked him. As he stepped forward to leave, Mei Hanxue called out to him again. Wait a moment. Does Mei Xiong have a request? The palace leader was a friend of Madame Rong's. She's worried. She sent me to check on the two from Wufeng sect. How are they? Are they still outside? Relief flooded through Moran. Yes, they're waiting outside the barrier. Nang Wusa placed a confinement curse on himself. Huang Shaiye went down too. I'm afraid he'll make trouble for them again. If you could look after them, I'd be grateful. Mei Hanxue pursed his lips and said no more. A graceful leap, and he disappeared through the barrier. Moran made his way up the mountain with all haste. So many undead lurked here. It would have been no surprise to stumble across at least a few bodies of fallen cultivators along the way. Yet curiously, all he encountered were dismembered and decaying corpses. They were disgusting, certainly, but not a single cultivator's remains stood out among them. Was it because the sect leader had only brought their most accomplished subordinates? He had no time to consider this. Why do I feel like it's something more sinister than that? He threw himself into the fray to clear away the revenants. He had previously been passing by corpses others had already defeated, feeble and twitching the ground. But as Moran met more of the fresh undead, the situation grew more curious still. Fighting them was too easy. Nothing like what he would have expected from the reanimated bodies of warriors. He felt like he was cutting down ordinary people who barely had the strength to truss a chicken. This is stressing me out. Moran's unease redoubled. A terrifying notion was taking shape in his mind. A corpse hanging from the tree, hair covering its face, lunged from Moran's neck. Moran jumped back, and the corpse turned its head to follow. Nostrils flaring, it sunk its bony fingers into Moran's shoulder and thrust its decaying face up towards his. Unspeakably revolted, Moran still thought strategically. One powerful kick sent the corpse flying into the thronging undead, knocking over several revenants that were closing in. Moran! Shimeng fought his way over and caught his breath. His cheeks were splashed with dark blood, eyes fury. What's going on? He said in a low voice. What with these corpses? Are they trying to wear us down via sheer numbers? Why are they all so weak? Moran's gaze was icy and distant. As the East-Wall Emperor Taishan Jin, he had read many evil spells, and had a faint suspicion as to what was going on. He just didn't have sufficient evidence. These revenants aren't cultivators, Moran said through gritted teeth. They're commoners. What? Shimon turned to him in shock. They're practically ashes. How the hell do you know they're not cultivators? I can't even tell if they're men or women. In lieu of answering, Moran asked, if we were fighting and you grabbed my shoulder because I didn't dodge quickly enough, what would you do? How would you expose your shoulder to me in the first place? It's a rookie move. Even 12-year-old disciples wouldn't make a mistake like that. Why is it a rookie move? Okay, guys, focus, please. Because it's close to the spiritual core. If I grab your shoulder, it's as good as grabbing half of your spiritual core. I just need to use my other hand to pierce your chest and you're done for. Right, replied Moran. One of the corpses grabbed my shoulder just now. How could you be so careless? Shimon cried in alarm. Do you want to die? It didn't do anything. Huh? It was so close, but it didn't occur to the corpse to go for my core with its other hand. Any cultivator should have a bone-deep instinct to protect their own core and attack their opponents. Like you said, even a 12-year-old would know that, and their bodies should retain those reflexes after death. But the corpse didn't do that. When Moran continued, his voice was grim. Why not? There are two possibilities. It either couldn't, or it didn't think of it. Shimon stared at him. Its limbs were uninjured, and eye was wide open. So that rules out the former, said Moran. It can only be that it failed to recognize the opportunity. These bodies probably all belonged to commoners. After death, they would be no match for top cultivators, like no one's gotten even a scratch in all the fighting. How could this be? Shimon asked, astonished. Why would Shuanglin pile so many dead commoners onto Mount Huang? If he can control corpses, why not control the corpses of cultivators? It's the same again. Either he couldn't, or he didn't think of it. How could he possibly fail to think of it? So that leaves only the first possibility. He couldn't. Moran's gaze was dark. Jiang Jue's scarlet sparks danced in his eyes like molten iron, falling into the vast sea of the night. Shuanglin's spiritual power isn't enough to control so many cultivators using the Zhenlong chess formation. But what use is it to control those weaklings? Shimon kicked down a row of undead, unsure whether to laugh or cry. What's the point of this? Who would this possibly stop? Moran said nothing. His conjecture was gaining form, sharpening at the edges. He surveyed the crowds of cultivators battling the corpses and noticed something bizarre. When the cultivators hacked off the revenants' limbs or heads, they collapsed to the ground. As he watched, a tiny vine sprouted from the earth and plunged into each of their chests. The vine wrapped around their hearts and, with a soft pop, pulled it into the ground, vanishing from sight. Oh no! Oh no, no, no. Okay, I don't want to read further tonight because that seems like we're heading somewhere very intense. And we are decidedly past the time, but I'm kind of glad because it hopefully made up for the little bit where things were slightly messy at the start. My theory is that he wanted to get the hearts of the cultivators for some kind of evil spell, but it was a lot of PT to do it while the corpses were still technically, potentially, in a position where they would fight against him. So what would be a lot easier is to get everyone else to do the massacring for him and just sneakily pull the necessary organs from the disarmed corpses when the opportunities presented themselves. I'm hoping it's nothing that grim because it feels like this man's always 5 steps ahead, and I frankly just want them to win for once. Is that too much to ask? It doesn't have to be a big win. Just give us a little win that isn't like, oh, we barely survived him doing unspeakable things. More like, oh, we actually achieved one tiny thing against him that we didn't intend to achieve, and he failed at something. I want that. Okay, anyway, it's giving everyone's going up on my wishing vibes. Yes, it was the point of no return for wishing, yeah. There's a lot of interesting things happening. I'm hoping Lehanshi stays on our side and doesn't secretly have an agenda that we should be worried about. And it would be great to see Shizun taken care of, but because we're only on volume 6 of 11, I'm not getting my hopes up. So for now, I just want Nangongsu and Iwangxi to get out safe and seek medical attention. Because as it is, Nangongsu is probably never going to be able to fight with his hand again. Because it actually takes a lot of coordination, and a hand is pretty fragile despite what people might believe. So, yeah. Still, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry again for the inconveniences throughout. But I will see you guys hopefully again on Thursday. You can just kind of keep an eye out for the live stream notification. But if it is like proceeding, it should be up at least about like an hour to half an hour before the live stream, which will be at 9ish my time, so 7 p.m. GMT. And feel like I'm forgetting something else. Oh, okay, just a quick note. It seems like we have about 3 live streams left to finish this up, so we should be able to finish this by the end of next week if nothing goes wrong. But I shouldn't say that because everything keeps going wrong. So, yeah. Anyway, again, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you then. 再见.